Well, hey everybody, Wes McDonald here with GoWest.ai, and I'm with my partner and friend, Corey Kirkendoll. How are you, Corey?
I'm doing well, Wes. How about yourself?
Hey, no complaints. We were just talking about some of the crazy weather events and stuff, and we haven't suffered any of that here. So obviously, my thoughts go out to those in Texas that have endured some, pretty crazy weather, right? And hopefully everyone is staying safe and well. Other than that, no complaints. I've been busy, as we talked about before this. I delivered two assessments yesterday and did a kickoff as well for a new one. So, it's exciting days in the world of artificial intelligence and what it can do
Yeah,
for business. And so glad to be here with you today to talk about that with people, right?
yeah, for sure, man. I enjoy this as well, man. It is exciting days, man. I wish these tornadoes were more AI, but these are the real deal, man. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, but it actually it's a good segue, right? When we start talking about safety and making sure that we're doing all we can, especially when these things happen. And AI, that's one of the things that does get overlooked quite frequently is the safety. And Corey, you and I have talked about this, that people oftentimes say, well, our office isn't quite ready for AI yet. We may not be doing anything, or we're going to wait 6 months or whatever it may be. Is that whether they like it or not, people are using AI in their office today, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I always tell you that, we have this thing in our IT industry called shadow IT, right? So it's definitely shadow AI, right? People have heard about it, they've tried it, they've tested it, they're doing things. They figured out that, hey, this could help me. So why don't I try it? If you don't say no, then you're saying yes, right?
That's right. Yeah. And it's, and it because it is so new, it's not like we're blocking all the URLs. And I'm not suggesting we should, right? But we're not taking any of those precautions, right? That in a lot of cases it's free, right? So if you
Yep.
look at ChatGPT, the free version, and it's really good. You look at Microsoft, they've done the same thing with their Copilot, right? There's a lot
Yep.
of free versions of it. Claude, the same thing, right? So it's so easy for people, to get into it. Even myself and yourself as business professionals, right? And we're using like the Chat GPT team version, right? Which is
Hmm.
a secured, version of the chat platform. Even that's only $25 a month. So, it's no wonder that, so many people are actually starting to use the tool sets, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean, it definitely changed the game, right? It's cost right. Free is always good. $35 a month to get a Teams and buy two licenses, and you got a little bit of security behind it, and the power of it is quite amazing, right? If you really spend the time doing it right, I mean, it can really enhance your business, and it's a game changer, right? But you got to spend that time doing it the right way.
it is. And for those of us that are watching live, and for those that are even watching the stream afterwards during the recording, let us know where you're from. So, Corey, you're in Texas, right? Which part of
Yeah,
Texas for our viewers?
yeah, I'm in Dallas, man. Well, actually in Plano, just right outside of Dallas.
Nice. And I'm
Yeah.
in Canada, so just in a little place called Fort Erie, right across the border from Buffalo. So we're known as border rats because we're that close. It's actually Buffalo's the closest city for me. If I want to go and get stuff, it's
Okay.
20 minutes for me to get downtown Buffalo versus Toronto, which is an hour and a half. So needless to say, I spend a lot more time in Buffalo than Toronto.
But I got to pick on you since you say you're close to Buffalo. You cannot be a Buffalo Bills fan, are you?
Oh, go Bills.
See, I think we may have to renegotiate our partnership on that one, man. I'm a Cowboy through and through, but it's all good. It's all
I'm
good.
glad I hit that one before we actually signed the deal. And listen, Joshua, thanks for joining in New Mexico. Yeah, and for anyone else that joins in, we'd love to know where you're from. This is
Sure.
being broadcast both on LinkedIn and on YouTube, so let us know where you're watching from. And great to see you. We got Jerry in from Florida, and he says, "Hi, Corey." Didn't say
Hey,
hi to
Jerry,
me
what's going
though.
on?
I'm going to say hi to you anyway, Jerry. So welcome, and thank you very much for for attending today. The other thing is we welcome comments and questions as we move through this. I love comments and questions. So as you move through them, we'll try and get them up there as quickly as we can, and certainly look forward to answering those as we can go. Right.
For sure.
Looks like we got a couple other folks coming in. Michael Goldstein, hello there.
What's up, guys?
Welcome. Let us know where you're watching from, Michael. And we got Robert Lloyd joining us from Connecticut. All right. Love Connecticut. And who else do we got jumping in? Lynette, good to see you. Thank you very much from Atlanta, Georgia. Great spot as well. And Scott joining us just from outside Toronto. Thanks for another
Oh.
Canadian, brother. There we go. That's great. Yeah, so continue to leave your comments and questions. We'd love to see them, right? And what I'm going to do now, Corey, is I'm going to bring up a document that we've created that we use with our customers, right? And the idea is that first and foremost, as I mentioned before, even if you're not going to be doing AI kind of officially or systematically in your company, I think it's fair to say, Corey, that they should at least have some policies and guidelines in place, right?
Yeah, 100%, right? It kind of goes back to, like I said earlier, right? If you're not stating the policy and how you as a business want to leverage AI and what you want to do with it, then the employees and everybody who uses it will dictate that policy for you, right? And so it's always good to put some guidelines around it, especially because it's so new and the government hasn't really caught up with it. So you know what happens, right? Government will regulate it as trouble starts to happen. And you want to be in front of that, right? And so this is a good opportunity for you to establish that, hey, I see it, I know it's out there, but this is how we as an organization leverage it, right?
You betcha. And, we're going to make it easy, right? So I'm just going to bring up something. And for everyone that has joined us, either live or, is watching it post, you can actually email Corey and I, and we'll get you this. I'll just pop our emails up quickly. Let me see where that is. Here we go. You can email either myself or Corey. I've got the email popped up there to get your very own copy of the AI Policies and Guidelines Development Statement of Procedure, right? And it's actually a very simple thing to do, Corey. Like whenever we're doing assessments with our clients, that's the first thing we do in the kickoff. Well, before the kickoff is to make sure that we've actually developed some preliminary guidelines and policies for AI usage in the office, which we deliver during the kickoff, right? So very easy to do. I'm not going to, bore everyone with the document up here the whole time, but it's very comprehensive, taking through all the steps that you need to do to very easily move through and make sure that you can develop your own. The other thing that Corey and I will send you is a sample version of it as well, right? So that you can actually move through one that has been completed to be able to look for it for inspiration and stuff. So you may just modify this one as you go through the exercise. You may create kind of your own, whatever you want to do, right? And Corey, as you know, we've talked about this, right? That I actually have, our AI use policies on our website as well. That's something new that's starting to happen, and that you can use these and that kind of thing, as well as you're letting people know how you're using, AI safely, for yourselves, right?
Yeah, it's always good, right? When you set the stage and you set the policy, it goes out there, because as you start to see in a lot of industries, especially in the ones we work with, the legal side, a lot of financial guy, is what we're seeing is they want to know what your strategy is up front. So we just put it right out there in front of them, right? And it just kills that question right off the bat. But it also allows for some interesting conversations and things that come up is, hey, why did you do this? How did you do this? And how do I do it for us, right? So it helps. So it's really cool from that perspective.
Yeah, it does too. And one of the things too is that people oftentimes, and you have this experience in your business, that often it's user error that leads to a lot of problems, right? And the amount of education that we have to do on a regular basis. And it's no different with AI. A lot of people don't realize that putting financial spreadsheets into the chat, is going somewhere else other than, kind of on their desktop. It's strange to say, but it's true, right?
Yeah.
So education.
We have a saying down here, right? Once you let the horse out of the barn, man, it's hard to get it back in.
Yeah.
Right? And so what we're trying to figure out is that, this is a big barn and some pretty big horses, and, you do not want to let them out. And if you do, you want to make sure you got pretty good guardrails around it to make sure that it's in a good spot, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Due diligence, right? Don't be don't be crazy. Don't be stupid about it, right? Be really good and diligent about it.
Yeah, and a proactive approach is good, right? So maybe we'll kind of move through what we have built into this, guide for folks to be able to build this, right? And obviously the first step is really understanding what we're going to be doing, right? So that initial consultation. Now, obviously, Corey and I do this with people, so you can rely on us for that initial consultation. Or if you're doing that internally, to make sure that you have all the right people at the table to kind of move through this, right?
Yep.
So one of the questions that you could ask, for example, at this point is what are the primary goals you want to achieve with AI in the organization, right? And what areas do we think there could be security concerns? And one of the ones I'll throw up right away is, and I get this from people too, it can be incorrect in both ways, right? People say, we're not going to try AI right now because they use all of our data in their training, right? That everything we put in is being used in their training data. And of course, that's not true. It is true for the free versions. You look at either the team version of ChatGPT or Copilot Pro, for example. Those inherently do not allow any of the data to be used in the training, right? So these are important things, and that's one of the things that we'll have in the policies and guidelines is, getting approval to use the right thing. Corey, another thing you see all the time, this is a, kind of a dangerous one still to this day, are Chrome extensions that they're not familiar with, right? That people look at saying, hey, I got this AI Chrome extension, it's doing magic, right?
Yep.
So those kind of things really should be approved through corporate. And, it's not that Chrome extensions are always bad. I use a Chrome extension for my Time OS, which I use for my summarization and my task management and stuff, right? But it's approved, it's actually gone through somebody to say, yes, you're allowed to use that one. So really important to get those things out of the way.
Yeah, I think you're hitting it right on the head, man. Is when you go in there and you have that initial conversation, it's really about that education and where it comes from. Because when you say AI, it's just a big, broad word, right? Copilot Studio, Copilot this, or running with this, and Teams version, and there's so much out there. But when you lay it down to try to educate and make sure that they're driving down the right lane, it kind of goes back to, like I say, with security, right? Free and secure kind of didn't really work.
Yeah.
So free and AI kind of feels the same way. You know what I mean?
It is the same way. I completely agree, right? And one of the things, and not to rant a little bit here, but I've been seeing a lot of articles since the 4.0 came out where people are actually saying, hey, ChatGPT 4.0 now is available to all users, right? Because you remember OpenAI, they were kind of holding their latest model only for the paid users, and now it's, for free, right? And they're saying now you no longer have to pay for, ChatGPT, right? It's like, slow down. That is one thing, right? It is not built for business. So if you're in a business, just because, you can get the latest model for free, that's one, iota, 1/100th of what's involved with that, not just for features, but keeping yourself safe, right?
No doubt.
And so we do have a user coming in, great information in this section. So easy for employees to be inadvertently sharing information they shouldn't be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And thanks for that. And I think, if not mistaken, that could be Petra. You can let me know if that's you. And if it is, great to see you. Yeah, absolutely. Right. That it's not that they're doing something, that they're trying to do that's bad. It's just that they don't know, any better. Right.
No doubt.
So step number 2 is identify key areas for guidelines, right? And this is built into the document that we have for you. So when you look at it, and I always start with, and I'll just list a few off, Corey, and you can add some color to them, right? First and foremost is data security, then system security, intellectual property, IP for the organization, right? Yeah. Those are the 3 big ones: data security, system security, and IP, that people just aren't thinking about when they're putting that information. So in the policies and guidelines, one of the things that we do is make sure that that's strictly stated, right? That you've got to be careful with this stuff. And if it looks, smells, tastes, any of those things, and it looks like it's related to security, stuff that you're not allowed to do in other ways, like, are you allowed to email that information to people? Probably not. Are you allowed to put that on your Facebook page? Probably not. Then don't put it in AI, right? Is that fair?
That is 100% fair. I tell people, especially on the MSP side, is I look at this as AI is that use case and that shiny ball that is going to open up and unhinge all those security conversations that you didn't have before, right? So when I look at this, I see DLP, I see network security, I see all the things. And because they want AI and they need AI so bad, they're willing to now have that conversation about the security options, right? And go down that path and really open it up. So now you're bringing in all those things that you've been trying to come out. They didn't really see a reason. They knew it was there, but now you have those conversations where it is extremely, extremely critical, because now this information can flow freely, not only across your organization, but out of your organization. Right?
Yes.
And so it's dangerous, right? And you really got to put your arms around it and really try to help protect. I call it building a Swiss Army knife with nothing but spoons, but we'll still figure out how to hurt ourselves, right?
That's right. Yeah, I've seen plenty of person take their eye out with a spoon, right? So
no doubt.
Yeah, but nonetheless, getting at least mitigating that risk, right? And that's that's our role, is to make sure that we're mitigating as much risk, reducing it as much as possible. So you can definitely do it there, right? And certainly once you've done that, the other areas that I like to look at obviously are privacy norms as well, right? And this is, less about our own stuff and more about other people. And, I've actually, seen, works where people will try and take something and then like let's say it's a blog out there or whatever, and then they'll use AI to write it as their own and post it. It's like, well, you could do that, certainly, right? And
Yeah.
but should you? And for other privacy things, right? What kinds of information are your private information from your company that you're giving? Did you put someone's name from the office saying I'm working with, Corey, and we're working on a project on AI? Should you really be putting that into the AI if you know that it's not secured, right? If it's in one of those free versions, and the answer is probably no, right?
Yep.
That if you have privacy concerns about the information you're sharing, just don't, right?
One of the challenges we see is treat AI as you would a low-level, entry-level employee, right? You wouldn't just set them loose and say, here's all the financial information, here's all the HR information, here's everything, right? You have to give it a little bit where it makes sense. And you got to treat it the exact same way. It is an assistant to get you to where you want to go, right?
Yes.
And once you start thinking about it in that manner, in that form, then it gets better and better, and it gets access to more and more. But you still got to put some training wheels on it, because if you don't, I mean, it's smart enough to know how to take off riding all by itself, and then that's when it's done, right? It's totally done.
That's right. And a big shout out to David Boswell. Good to see you, David. Thanks for joining us from Florida. And it looks like we do have a question that came in from Kathy. She said, where do you fit into the guidelines, the need for ethical, responsible bias guidelines as well, with state laws, EU laws, and evolutionary Fed laws? Yeah, great. Absolutely. Perfect. We do have an example in the guidelines as well as the sample, which speaks specifically to the ethical and responsible use of it, right? That these are very real things that people are not aware of, and that we want to, make sure that they are taking those into consideration. And certainly depending on where you are as well. So I like how you did mention the EU, right? So if there are compliances and stuff, GDPR, for example, that have to be taken care of, that you should have those in your guidelines as well, right? Saying that the same actions that we take for GDPR, you got to make sure that you're doing that with what we're doing with with AI, that it's not any different. So really great. Yeah. And where that would fit in the guidelines, I'm trying to think. Let me see. I'll try and pull up my sample document. Where do we put it in here? Let's see here. Yeah, so we've got it under actually understanding and navigating. Where is it here? Oh, good grief.
Yes, understanding and navigating. I think the risk is where we have it out there.
Yes, yeah, that's the section. But of course, Kathy, you can put it wherever you want to. If you want to have an actual section which is dedicated to ethical and responsible use and stuff as well, you can definitely put it there. And we've got a LinkedIn user saying, great point, Kathy, and I completely agree. And I knew this was coming. My good friend, Greg Walters, he's a great AI aficionado. And he's like, ethics, whose ethics? Mine, yours, et cetera, right? And I know, Greg, I won't speak out for you, but I know you're, Greg does have some really good views on kind of the lines that we draw between how we kind of put guardrails on AI versus when we don't, right? And Elon Musk, what did he just get? Didn't he just get a $6 billion, finance arrangement to start growing out, what he's doing with Gronk, which was nothing, right? Gronk was, kind of a side, a side game. And with that kind of money, he's going to start doing more. So it'll be interesting to see how that, that works out. So both very good points. And then we have Joshua saying, esteemed dudes, how do we produce that framework you referred earlier? I'm glad you asked. I'll share that one again, Joshua. We actually have a sample, both of the AI corporate usage guidelines, which you can use for inspiration. And the other document is the one that we have for actually building it. So the AI Policies and Guidelines, Development Statement of Procedure, you can use that to help you along. And we're certainly happy to share that with anyone. As we mentioned, I'll just bring up the emails again. If you do want to get your hands on that, that's west@gowest.ai. And you can also get hold of Corey with his email there. We'll be happy to get you, copies of that. And absolutely free, no charge. It's that important.
Right.
All right. So let's go back. Yeah. So now comes drafting the guidelines, right? So we've had a chat with the people that are going to be involved. We've looked at the key areas that we want to, actually identify. And now we're going to start drafting the guidelines, right? And I do say draft because one of the things that I think should happen is even once they are drafted, and this does come down a little bit later in sort of the tips and tricks that we talk about, is that it's really a good idea to get it in front of your people to say, hey, look, we're working on these policies and guidelines. Here's our draft if you have anything to contribute. Because let's face it, Corey, there are going to be some people in there that have been using AI safely, that have been students of AI, right, without anyone knowing, and they might have some contributions, right, to be able to add to the document.
Right. And we also know that, those who are there, right, when it's not being forced upon them, they want to be a part of the process, right? So having them out there, and being part of it can help move it along, right? We need those champions out there too.
Yeah, we do, right? And that's certainly one of the, the tips that I referred to. I love Greg. One of the tips is, let me see if I have it here, actually. See if I actually put it in here somewhere. I'll find it. I'm so not on my game today, Corey. Oh, here we go.
Good, man.
Tip, engage employees. Yeah. And at the end of the day, when people own things, right? Like anytime that I've been involved in something and I have some level of ownership, I'm much more likely to do it, right?
Yep.
That when it's not just sort of passed down. And this is all so new. And the other recommendation I would say is that we've got to align it with the, the culture of the company, right, Corey?
100%.
So I've had some people say, yeah, our policies and guidelines are basically don't use AI until we tell you to, right? And I'm like, okay, probably not the best start. So let's look at your culture. What are the tenets of your culture, right? One of mine, for example, and this, it's leading with technology, progress through technology, right? So if one of my core values is actually progress through technology, how on earth could I just block AI? I can't, right? So, making sure that it does align with your culture.
Yeah. And I mean, you help them get through that, right? So if yours is to progress with technology, you got to make that pathway to do that, right? And you're right. Once you tell them that you cannot do it, that's when they're going to do it.
I'm telling you, every human being on earth is built that way.
100%, right? So, right? We're going to make it happen. Now you go tell me no.
Yep. And again, especially since it's free and everything else, right? So again, just for anyone that is watching, any comments and questions, we love to get them. We've seen some good ones so far. And let us know where you're watching from. If you're new, joining the stream a little bit later, you can let us know where you're watching from. So we've gotten through drafting some of the guidelines, and then it is step number 4, and that is kind of where I put the tip for engaging with the employees, is to get that review and feedback, right? And it's just so invaluable. And that's, one of the things I have, this is the first business actually that I've done this, but I have a board of advisors, right? I have 5 people that I rely on. I meet with them once a month. And when I'm having challenges or thinking of trying something new or whatever, I run it past them, right? And it has been so good, Corey. Like, I can't believe it, that brain trust that's willing to help you out with that review and feedback and some of the insights that, that you get for it, right?
Yeah. But we noticed in that situation, right? Because, you're so close to it and you're in it and you're just like, hey, man, this is the right way, the best way.
Right.
And you don't see it. But getting a different lens on it, getting from a different perspective, different organization, different department, just kind of opens it up and makes it a lot better from that perspective. And, and that's the piece where it comes down to is I don't think a lot of companies put it out there and say, hey, give me your feedback. Let you become part of this, right? It's part of that culture. And it just changes the dynamics, especially with something as big as where this is going, right? This is game changing, right? Everybody's hearing it. We're above it. And you'd be shocked of how many people go out there and say, hey, this is what we're doing at our company when it comes to AI. And this is what I've been able to contribute with that, right? It's changing the game big time.
Oh, it absolutely is. And that's really why it's so important to involve everybody, because they're scared too, right, Corey? I mean, it's unbelievable that a lot of people are worried about losing their jobs. They're worried about how AI is going to impact them. So where they're involved with how AI is being used, it's amazing how that can get rid of some of that fear factor too, right? Just for themselves.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So once you get that review and feedback, then obviously we can finalize and get it out for approval. And it is one of those documents that's never truly done. So when we're working with our clients through the assessment process, the set of policies and guidelines that we have at the beginning of the assessment are quite different from the ones when they actually start employing AI solutions, right? That it has to be modified. It has to be updated. But even though this is a living document, at least the one that you do share out and say, here are the official guidelines and policies. And again, you mentioned, Corey, earlier that it's not just the stuff internally, but the stuff that we're putting out. And this is something that we can talk to our clients about, right? If they're worried about AI or if they have partners that are worried about AI, they could say, hey, you know what? We got this. We've actually got policies and guidelines. We're taking this seriously. Here's what we're doing to make sure we're approaching it responsibly, right?
Yeah, and that's what you're starting to see now in our area. From we work with legal and nonprofits and things like that. We're also showing them how they can leverage that as a competitive advantage in some of the things. Right, we're seeing them add it to their grants. We're seeing them
Oh
add it to
yeah,
their profiles. Because remember, when you're in that situation, it's very competitive. So it's one little thing that sets you across and differentiates you from the other, right? And so what we're saying now, if you have a good cyber policy or have a good person protecting that, and then another person sitting there, hey, here's what we're doing to get in front of AI. That's just one more little thing that differentiates you from someone who looks, smells, and acts just like you, right? So
it's
those
true.
are really good stuff
Absolutely.
down that path.
And look, we got a question here from Jerry. And before we answer it, I think one of our other members might have answered it. And it's kind of fun. So, our owner's surprised at the amount of shadow AI being used within their orgs. Thanks for that question, Jerry. And Tim has responded already for us. I don't think most business owners know their staff is using AI. And I would agree with that piece, right?
Yeah.
That the real surprise comes from, whenever we do an assessment, just to help you with that question, Jerry, the first thing that we do is an AI readiness rating for each department, right? So as we go through the interviews, we look at what stage they are, in their AI readiness. And of course, at the top, it always comes down, well, you can just mark everything down as a 0 because our people aren't using it. And then
Yep.
as we start going through the departments, when we go through IT, for example, right? They're like, yeah, you know what, Wes? I actually started using GitHub Copilot. It's been amazing. We do a lot of scripting with it, data code checking, absolutely unbelievable, right? And when that shows up in the assessment at the top, they're like, they're doing what with what? What is this? GitHub? What is that?
What's going on?
Yeah. And it happens all the time, right? So absolutely. And Tim is correct on that, right? I don't think most business owners know. And it is so, what's the word? It is so, almost invisible in the sense that it's not something you have to interact with someone else to use, right? That you're actually interacting with the tool itself.
Yeah.
So it just really does go, it slips uncovered.
What's funny is when we go and have these conversations, you look at everything, right? You got every new laptop has an AI chip, all the phones has AI in it, everything is in it, right? So it's out there, right? It's happening, right? As an MSP, we get it all the time. And hey, I need help setting up my new email. I just got the new iPhone 37. I got to have it, right? Yeah, it's all 100% AI enabled. So there it goes, boom.
And that's it. It makes Kathy's question actually kind of hard, right? Like if there's any great tools to identify it. And, I would say other than the interview process, right, that obviously, Corey, you can tell me this is your world, but there's got to be ways to do, at least for stuff that's done in the office, looking at the URLs and stuff that were used, right, to be able to do a filter for that. So to be able to set up, at least to be able to understand if it was OpenAI's website or ChatGPT or Claude or some of the usual suspects. I mean, that's one simple way I would say to be able to do that. Is that fair?
That's 100% fair. Look at where they're going, look in the firewall, look at where they're browsing to, what's happening, what the history is from that perspective. And then really, I think it comes down to that personal interview is where a lot of the rubber hits the road, is saying, hey, here's what that looks like. What are you doing? And it comes in the form like, can you walk me through the process of how you do your job? Sitting down with the marketing people and say, oh yeah, I just open up ChatGPT and say, hey, give me 30 social media posts based off of XYZ. And you're like, oh, okay. That's how we're doing that, right? And so then you get the real crux of it, right? And it just spreads like wildfire. Everybody in the department is doing it. Everybody's having this conversation. Everybody's doing something. And you're right. Most people don't know, right? They just say, oh man, my department is just so much more productive. How did that happen?
That's like a miracle, right? Michael kicked in. Thanks, Mr. Goldstein. We've advised all managed services clients regarding the AI apps that we are seeing via web filtering reports. So same advice, which is great. Definitely. And very simple to do, right? It's not I think that's one of the beautiful things, at least about most AI models today, is that they are web-based, right? That it's, there are some application levels. I know that both Apple, they're trying to create a desktop application for that, as well as for Microsoft Windows, but the Windows one doesn't exist yet. But those are, again, things that you can, actually lock down and, take care of, right?
Yeah.
And looks like Joshua Lieberman has a very long URL here. This might help AI detection, GPT0.me. I'm not sure what this one is, but thanks. I'll research that. And I certainly don't recommend any of them until I test them, but thank you for sharing that, Joshua. If anyone wants to give that one a go, I've never used it myself. I'm not sure if you have, Corey. but
And
just
not,
another way. It's always good to have those in your, in your toolkit. So thanks for, for sharing those. All right. Implement and educate, right? So once we actually have finalized and approved, we got to get it out there. And usually what I do is recommend actually having an all hands meeting, right? Where we actually, instead of just emailing it out saying, here's our policies and guidelines, have an all hands meeting, walk through each of those sections, allow for any questions that people may have, make sure that they feel involved, right? And just have that personal effect. Because Corey, you said it earlier, this is also new. It is also game changing that if people just see this weird email coming out with policies and guidelines, it seems scary, right? It's like, oh no, now I'm in trouble, right?
no doubt. And it gives opportunity for that feedback. You're creating those champions in there, right? You're doing whatever it is, and really protecting that intellectual property and things that are out there that may flow freely that you just think is being innocent and not knowing, and to have a more difficult conversation, right? I'd rather have a conversation where we're training and bringing you up to date than having a conversation where we're sitting there with HR and lawyers and everybody else sitting there, right? We don't want to be there.
Yes.
So educate for sure.
Always. And we did get a thumbs up from Joshua. He said he's tested a few times this week already, which is great. And Joshua has kicked in with another one. Wonder when SonicWall and others. Oh, that's interesting. Will provide an AI blocking feature in their CFS that could allow us to block, note, or limit access to AI sites based upon their user group objects, or just do reporting at least on its use. Yeah, even just at the reporting level, that would be really helpful, right?
Yeah. And I suspect we'll see a lot of that coming up really soon from that perspective. But I agree. You can see that some of the tools are lagging behind or where we need to be, right? So, that's where the education piece comes in. Before the tools, you need to know how to identify.
Yeah.
So you know that you're blocking the right thing or doing the right thing at that time.
And that's what these policies and guidelines do, right? It just makes sure that at least we're doing our level best, given how far behind everything is, to be able to take care of those things. It is shocking. I mean, when you think of most of the tool sets that we're used to using and how many of them still are not, AI prepared, right? So at this time, it's up to us to do it.
For sure.
The next step in the guidelines and policies, just make sure that you are monitoring and adjusting, right? So, you may have the best of intentions with one part of your policy, only to realize in some way that it is like, say, restricting a department from something that they were doing before already, right? Unintended consequences for, something that they're doing. So you will probably have to adjust as you, kind of get that thing into the wild, into the, living and breathing, right?
And this is just like it is on the security side, right? We know it can be very rigid, but if you make it too hard and you make it non-productive and all that good stuff, then all you can do is create more shadow AI is going to come at you, right? It's going to come. They're going to go around it and figure it out. So monitor and adjust and have a great way for them to provide that feedback and show that progression is where it's going to be, right? That we're making a culture change and we're going to do that piece is going to be good.
Yes. And Carl has popped in. Hey, Carl, good to see you. Says we'll probably have an AI that will identify other AIs, and I guarantee we will. Yes.
That's right, man. AI to detect AI to detect that AI that did that one, right? Yeah. That's what you
another great idea. So Tim talking about going to implement DNS filtering to block AI for Office as well as remote workers. And again, this can be modified to make sure that you're only blocking AI that's not approved, right? So, again, I'm a big fan of making sure that people do have some access to this new technology, but can certainly use that DNS to, to make sure that it's, the kinds of stuff that's approved in the Office, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Andrew Harover, our government contractor clients are putting a lot of effort into blocking any and all AI-enabled stuff. That one actually makes me a little sad, but I don't think it has to be an any and all. But you know what people do, and when they don't understand something, right, is that it is completely blocked, right? It's like until we know better, you know. So so that is another way, right?
For sure.
Question here, I'm not sure if I have the answer for. Has NIST published any guidelines? I don't know this one. Do you?
Not right off the hands. I know there's been some working in the background, but I don't think there's anything directly yet. I'll have to go back and look. I'll put that on my to-do list for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks for bringing that up, Tim. We'll definitely check that out. And if you do email us, like I said, if you want to get your hands on the guidelines and the policy, we'll also make sure we send you whatever updates we find on that for anyone that's watching here today. Greg Walters coming in. Okay, not to be negative. And he's not, by the way. Greg is one of the most positive people you'll ever meet. But your implementation formulas appear to be the same or based on all previous IT projects, what is the difference between AI, MPS, IT, doc management, asset management, security, or any other IT project pre-GPT? And I would honestly say, Greg, you're probably right. The answer probably isn't much, right?
Yep.
This really is still technology. It's another technology paradigm. We will have to apply a lot of the same rigors and standards that we did before for previous technologies. So yeah, not negative at all. Very fair statement. However, it's shocking how many people forget. I got the little winky wink here. It's shocking how often we forget sometimes to apply what we already know, the truths of the past, to the things that are happening now, right? So yeah, absolutely good point there, Greg. And another comment from Greg: Luddites tried to block stuff too. Sure they did, and look what happened to the Luddites. I love it. All right. So that's it. Monitor and adjust. As we said, tip, align with culture. Make sure that you do that. It really does have to fit with your cultural values. Engage with the employees we talked about. Oh, and then the other thing is, try and be as specific as possible, right? So if you're, for example, saying that we want to make sure that we're protecting our data and that we approve ChatGPT for use in the office. Well, do you really, or is it ChatGPT team? And why is it team, right? Explain to them why that, getting an officially approved license or whatever is, is important, right?
Yeah, and just getting back to the original of the stakeholders, right? That that there's going to be some cost out there. There's going to be something that they have to put in the budget for, right? If you don't put it in there, then they'll be using the free version. It's what breaks the policy and goes down the path. So if you're going to put it in, you need to make sure that there's a acceptable budget to be able to support what you're putting together in your framework.
Yeah. And I'm not sure about this one. This isn't really related to the guidelines, I think. And maybe I'm wrong, Lynette. You can add a little more, right? Do you have the security protocols we can add to custom GPTs before taking them public? We do work with custom GPTs, both with the simple stuff through OpenAI and through other organizations for larger projects, and can certainly have that conversation with you offline. Unless it is related to just the guidelines, you can let me know about that. Tim has come back with AI needs to be added to our security stacks. Absolutely, right? Black all and allow by exception. Yeah, completely agree. Yeah. All right. And continue, folks, if you do have comments or questions, and let us know where you're watching from. If you've just recently joined, any comments or questions are quite welcome to come. And Corey, I think we're actually running a little over. We said we were going to do this for half an hour, right? So I always love it when we've got enough interaction from the audience to be able to take us over. And I'm not in a rush, so if people do want to stick around. And one of the other things I want to do, Corey, just to let people know where they can check out before I forget, because I will, is where they can find us, right? So if you go to gowest.ai, on this site, you can actually learn about what we do to help businesses with their AI strategies and their AI work. We do a fractional, CHOW service as well, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. My business advisor tells me it's cow because of the way it's spelt, but I do want to say chow. And of course, get out of 5ktech.com, or official partner in the Texas and surrounding areas, to make sure that you work with them for a lot of other things, right? Because I agree, someone said it's got to be added to the stack. This is just one component of, what you guys do for all of your customers, right?
Sure.
It's an important piece, but it's, absolutely there. So you can visit, both of us there. Put our emails up again, west@gowest.ai, and C. Kirken at 5ktech.com for those that would like to, to get in touch with us.
Yeah,
for sure. One more tip.
Just to follow up on Tim's, man, I did find what NIST has staked for AI. So when you drop me an email or whatever, I'll make sure I drop that back to you as well. So
sweet. I love it. And we got, let's see, great discussion. Thanks to you both. No, thank you, Tim, for being here today. Great contributions. And also to LinkedIn contributor. Thanks to you both. Just the beginning of this, but something organizations need to get ahead of. Absolutely agree. And if that's you, Petra, great comments. And if it's not Petra, whoever you are, great comments. So, thanks for putting that out there. Yeah. And I'm sure Corey and I will find a way, to get together again on another topic related to AI and business. And really just want to thank everybody for joining in with us today. Make sure you do reach out to us via our emails to be able to get both a copy of the guidelines, the sample guidelines, and also the scope of procedure to be able to develop your own.
Perfect. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. All right. All the best.
Take care.